Welcome to the Babies in Business Podcast. Join your hosts, Rachel and Avram Gonzalez, real-life parents and business partners. Each week on Babies in Business, Rachel and Avram create a space for entrepreneurial parents to find their own way. They'll dive into insights on topics like leadership, efficiency, self-awareness, budgeting, and human psychology as they nurture their family and build their business. Here's your hosts, Avram and Rachel.
Hey friends, welcome back to the Babies in Business Podcast. I have such a special guest to introduce you to. I only met her within the last month and discovered that she was doing some very interesting things in the health and wellness space that I think you deserve to know about. Jane's story is one that we'll get into during the podcast today. But beyond that, she is on her way with several nominations under her belt for her documentary, Drowning in Sickness. As Jane will tell you, she did not set out to be a filmmaker, right? She just set out to solve a problem for her family and discover why their health was suffering. So Jane, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Avram. It's a genuine honor.
Yeah. So we met at this retreat called Ecstasis as part of the Inspirian courses that we've been talking a little bit about on the podcast. And Jane just shone through as this brilliant light of inspiration. She was there for me in a difficult and vulnerable moment. And from that time, we started to bond. I felt her energy, was excited to connect with her on social media. Jane, tell us a little bit about you and why you're here today. This documentary, Drowning in Sickness. Tell us a little bit about it, and then we'll get into some of our Q&A.
Yeah. So I should say I'm not a filmmaker. I have no background in it. I went to school at Colorado State for hospitality. I love to love people. I think my best way of describing is my love language is gifts. And I really wanted to always be a mother, but I didn't realize that it was going to be more complicated. And so it took 6 years of trying with my husband to realize the traditional way, while fun, it's not working. And so we went through IVF and a lot of complications through genetic testing. And we finally had what we thought were two very healthy embryos that we decided to then go forward with implanting and placing into my body. They worked. I have a daughter who is now 7, almost 8. I have a son who is 6, and completely different, but also very similar. They look like they're twins. And when we moved from California to Colorado right before COVID, we knew that going to preschool, they went to a Montessori, would create germs. They were going to get sick. We knew that. Like, it's actually really important, I think. And so what we thought would be one cold that would last a few days ended up taking 10 to 14 days. So we experienced influenza A, influenza B, whooping cough, bronchitis, pneumonia, hand, foot, and mouth, COVID repeatedly, and then like step and repeat. So that wasn't just a one-time occurrence, all of those were multiple times. Pink eye, etc. And I started to get really deflated. So my son was 2.5 when he started to develop a barking cough. I describe it kind of, if you've ever been in a marina, whether it's San Francisco or West Coast or East Coast, you'll see these big seals on top of docks. Yeah. And they'll create these like barking sound squeals. And that was my son. And we would go to the pediatric office and they'd say, he's fine. It's probably allergies. He's fine. He has a cold. And I was dismissed. And I should mention that at that point, I really did trust the system. I don't want to say I'm ignorant, but I was ignorant. I didn't know that I actually could, a mother's intuition, think that there might be something else. So this went on for a year. And from there, we also experienced a lot of ear infections. And in one 365-day course of time, my son had 6 ear infections with antibiotics. That should be a felony, I've now since learned, because it takes on average about 2 years in order for your gut to create all of the good microbiomes inside of it and really like replenish. And so he never got back to his origin state within his stomach because he just kept getting more. And I finally insisted on seeing an ear, nose, and throat specialist because the barking cough was all night, all day. I was getting really annoyed, candidly, with the coughing. I was like, why can't you just stop? Yeah. And We went to the 3rd floor of the emergency room hospital, and the 3rd floor is where the pediatric office is and the ENT. They took one look at my son. They lifted up his shirt, and they could see that he was retracting in his breathing, and they quickly asked me to rise. They took me downstairs, and he was admitted into the emergency room. His oxygen count had dipped to below 80. Anything below 80 is where you start to go into organ failure.
Holy cow.
Yeah, yeah, I cried a lot, and since Exorcist and learning all this, I realized I wasn't crying because I was sad or scared. I was crying for gratitude because a mother's intuition really was there.
Yes.
And I thought, "Okay, I should have spoken up even louder." And he was diagnosed with chronic asthma, chronic allergies, chronic eczema, and anaphylactic to dairy. And so we had a big bowl of medication that we left after we were discharged from the hospital a couple days later of all the different asthma inhalers, of all the different allergy medications, the steroids, all of that. 2 weeks later, we went to Colorado, in Steamboat Springs up west, and my daughter had had an ear infection that we were in urgent care for. She was given penicillin, and when we were in Steamboat, we noticed at the hot spring she had these tiny little bumps starting to form on her body. It looked like if you've ever had a friend or if you've had a mosquito bite where you really blow up, that's what it looked like. I asked my sister, I was like, "What do you think?" She's like, "I think it's nothing." And then a few minutes later, I noticed they started to, like, literally pop in front of my
Huh.
eyes. And so I left the hot springs with her against all of my family thinking I was overreacting. We went back to the condo, and I was gonna give her a bath to try to remove some of the sulfur. I thought it was a sulfur reaction. And I opened up her mouth, and I started to see the bumps forming in her mouth. And that's when then I could hear the labored breathing.
Massive reaction.
Massive. We went to the hospital where they gave her steroids and more antibiotics, and what we realized after we got down the mountain was that she is actually allergic to penicillin, and not just allergic, but her immune system, it triggered this incurable disease called erythema multiforme and serum sickness. It takes about 6 weeks, give or take, for the reaction to take its course. And during that, because of the serum sickness, it would get into her joints. And so she couldn't even move a millimeter without screaming. And you couldn't move her fingers because they were locked. When the serum sickness dissipated from her joints, then she became Gumby. So she had no control over her body. So we had to put her back into diapers. I'd have to carry her everywhere. And there was a point during the serum sickness when she was in that rigor mortis state that she was screaming. I've never heard a scream like this before, even in like horror films. And I recorded it and I sent it to the hospital and I said, "I don't think this is normal." And we had gone to the hospital several times and I finally was really frustrated because they weren't doing anything. They were saying Motrin, Tylenol, Benadryl. And the video was received and they said, "There's nothing we can do." So we rode the course. We know that she's allergic to penicillin. We know that this can be triggered from antibiotics. We don't know if anything else can be triggering it, but we knew.
Oh.
All right, so fast forward, I'm back in the urgent care with my son for another ear infection, almost 104.7 fever. And that is when I get a phone call from my best friend saying, "Have you heard of molecular hydrogen water?"
Mm.
Sounded too scientific for me, it went right over my head. And she said, "It's really expensive, but I think that you need to have this unit in your home and it's going to help reduce your inflammation." I didn't know, but now I do, is that inflammation is the root of most disease. And so we bought it. It was the same as my deductible for insurance for the year. My husband was very, very skeptical. He thought this was woo woo and I got played. And we hooked it up and started drinking this water on September 1st, 2023. 45 days later was the first 45 days that my kids were not sick in 3 years. And then I got really curious. And so I started to track the days, and we are now over 700 days of not having to go to the hospital due to any of these illnesses.
Holy
Then I got
crap. Okay, carry on. Carry on. That's massive because
Yeah.
you're telling me this like super long stream of unfortunate
Super.
events. On and
Totally.
on and on. Okay.
Yeah, it's a lot. I can't even get it down to like 4 minutes because it's like it's one of those things, right? But what I realize is that I'm not unique. Our story is not unique. Everyone who has children, their kids get sick. But what if we could help their system be able to absorb whatever virus or bacteria comes into their body and alleviate the duration while also boosting their immune system? And so I became so curious that I thought, okay, I'm going to start asking questions to integrative health doctors. I'm going to start talking to chiropractors, acupuncturists, medical doctors, naturopathic doctors. Why is this working? And I decided no matter where the answers led me, I was going to follow it. And so Drowning in Sickness was formed. I have a DJI camera. It's tiny. It was super shaky when I filmed it, but I was able to, like, with programs, like, stabilize it. And I traveled 52 flights in 1 year, traveling all over the country, filming people that said yes, they would talk about it. And that is how Drowning in Sickness was formed. It's got the ethos of, like, the emotion and the stories of families and people from paraplegics to autism to liver regeneration to doctors saying, not only is this working, but here are pub medical studies that show why it's working. And so then I decided to throw cartoon into the film because I don't know about you, but, like, I learn better with tutorials in video form than reading it. It's my dog. And I decided I wanted to learn about it. So that is the film. I did not set off to think film festivals would even think it was good. But come to find out, they not only like it, they've nominated me for Best Documentary Film Feature repeatedly, and that's where I am becoming very humbly grateful for this.
So, what were some of the most surprising conversations you had about bringing this information to some of the folks that you interviewed? Is there something that sticks out for you around that?
Yeah, I remember there was a little boy, his name is CJ. He is autistic, and how he became autistic is revealed in the film. And what I noticed is that he wasn't regular, like, he had a lot of constipation, he had a lot of dark circles under his eyes, speech stuttering, and this water doesn't heal you, but this water helps you. It puts you instead of a defensive state into an offensive lifestyle. And he was regular. He wasn't stuttering as much. His dark circles diminished. He was able to be more articulate. I found that to be really compelling, and especially because here we're with the babies in business, is that this is helping children, and I've also turned it into a business, and this was not my life path. So I thought that story for me was really, really hopeful just because of so many parents out there that this could really help their family.
So, what do you think is the impact of water on your biology? Because I've been thinking about this a lot lately. I live here in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and the water here versus a lot of areas in the United States is very hard. So we have a lot of minerals in the water. When you drink it, you don't really like. I don't like the taste of the tap here in Colorado. The
Yeah.
tap was I just loved it. Like, it was great. So I find myself shrinking. When I moved here, drinking less water because I didn't like the
Mm.
taste. And then I don't know. I feel like people here are pretty. Like, if you drive in New Mexico, you'll realize that people are a little bit more aggressive. Okay, and so I've been wondering lately. I'm like, how much of this is the water?
I would say the majority of the world's population is chronically dehydrated. If you have a headache, I would say probably 98% of that headache is because you're dehydrated. And instead of going to medicine to help with the headache, maybe we should be turning to water. I will also say, to your original point about the water taste, clear does not mean clean. You do need minerals in your water to help your body. Minerals actually are what keep you hydrated, but it's what kind of minerals, how many minerals, like, there becomes a science to it. There's a website called ewg.org, and it's /tap water. And what's really cool is they're a nonprofit. So you can actually type in your zip code into this, and it'll tell you exactly, based on what municipal district you're getting your water source into your home from, what's in your water, what over exceeds the limits. I mean, I found out our home has overexceeded chlorine, fluoride, birth control, pharmaceutical drugs, pesticides, herbicides. It just continued to go on, and not just a little, like it was way over. And so I always try to explain you have to have pre-filtration. And unfortunately, in the United States, how they're killing bacteria in the water is through chlorine. But chlorine is really toxic for our body. So everybody should get a whole house filtration system. And then if you want to take it a step further, you should have a under your sink, like wherever you're drinking the water from the most, you should have a very concentrated filtration system that's going to filter out all of that. The unit that I'm talking about, molecular hydrogen water, is not something that you like, you have to hook it up to your faucet because hydrogen gas is really flammable. But what we found is that when it is infused into water, it cancels each other out. And so when you drink this water infused with H2, molecular hydrogen, within 15 minutes, it permeates throughout your entire body. So it's penetrating the blood-brain barrier. It's going into your cellular membrane, your organs, your liver. Water molecule is too big. So think like a colander, like if you're doing pasta, the water comes out of the colander, but the pasta noodles stay. So when you're drinking water, that's the pasta. It can't penetrate into your cellular membrane if the colander is like your skin, your blood-brain barrier. Hydrogen gas that's infused in the water can actually penetrate through that colander. And so within 15 minutes, it's everywhere. And within 60 minutes, you've actually exhaled it all out. So it's not stored in your body. You can't taste it. You can't smell it. I think it gets a bad rap because it's like it does so many things. How can it be this wonderful tool? And it's like, well, that's like vitamin C. Vitamin C has so many benefits. And so instead of people being skeptical, I would ask people to be more curious. Because if this is shown studies with Parkinson's, cancer, Crohn's disease, tumors, liver regeneration, eyesight, kidney stones, I become very curious as to why, and then how can we spread more awareness to then get more people interested in saying, yes, I'm willing to then drink this water.
Well, the awareness thing is interesting, right? Because when you navigate this reality, you navigate it with the awareness that you have and the awareness that you choose to have through your curiosity. And wouldn't it make sense that the things that we've chosen to be unconscious and unaware of can be something as simple as the water that we're drinking?
Totally.
And that we would assume from a state of unconsciousness that there is nothing I can do about it. So why go looking? Right? But we don't think about it consciously like that. We just
No,
assume that
I
this is our
didn't.
reality and like this is the water that I drink. There's nothing I can do about it. But yet that all matches up and makes sense, at least in my journey today, that we could construct such a reality where we would basically be blind to all sorts of things that would be beneficial to us because we're just walking through our life on autopilot.
I agree. It's interesting. I was so hyper focused on the clothes that I wear, the food that I eat, the supplements that I take, without realizing that the very foundation of us being alive is water. So then I thought, well, a Berkey is enough. At first, I think it was the refrigerator filter. Then I upgraded to a Brita. Then I upgraded to a Berkey. And then I realized, okay, I actually have to do more. And I think that's the other point is that the learning as we've done in our retreats, like it never stops. So you should constantly be asking the questions. And by asking questions, that makes you a scientist because you're inquisitive to know more. You and I talked about this earlier, but I would rather have people invest in their health now than pay for their illness later. I don't want to be 60, 70, and 80 having to rely on my children to help care for me because I didn't take care of my health today. And so that's my whole focus is how can I live a vibrant, energetically fulfilled life so that way I'm living it to my best capabilities so that way I don't suffer when I'm older.
Where do you think willingness and the willingness to do whatever it takes fits into this conversation regarding the financials side of it, also regarding, this journey that you went through? Where do you think that all fits in?
If my kids were not sick, I don't know if we would be having this conversation. But I also looked that I was willing to ask the questions to understand why. And you'll hear a part in the film where I said, I'm so grateful that my children were sick. And that's kind of a crappy thing to say, but it's raw because if they weren't sick, then we would still be battling in the future something else. And so I'm grateful that I was able to find a solution that works unanimously for everyone because now we get to live a vibrant life. And the willingness comes from, was I willing to take the risk to share it? Was I willing to take the vulnerability of putting myself out there? It's polarizing and magnetizing. If I'm loved by one, I'm hated by 10. And yet I still have the courage to say, but it's my truth. It's my story. And you can't take that away from me. And so that I think is where my willingness to show up, get out of bed and go to work, which is share my story. And do people have the willingness to listen?
Yeah, it's powerful, right? Because you were going into all these doctors' offices and stuff, and people are telling you you're crazy, right? Or they're
Yeah.
looking at you like you are this maybe overprotective mother that you're just spinning out on stuff, but you knew that there was something going on, and so you still fought for it.
Oh, yes. I this is vulnerable. When I told my family about this, I was so excited that my excitement repelled them. They didn't wanna hear about it. They thought that how can Jane go from being an entrepreneur in the wine and hospitality world to now health? Like, that doesn't compute. And to this day, my siblings still don't believe in it. And that's hard. And as you've learned, like, I do a lot of collapsing with the DeMartini method on it because I want to love them regardless of their opinions.
Yeah. You think about the world that we're in right now, and especially the environment post-COVID, very polarizing environment. And
Mhm,
it doesn't matter what you believe, but for you to stand in your belief takes a lot of courage
mhm.
because there's a lot that you can lose.
Oh, sure.
But what you gain is literally everything.
I wanna be remembered when I die for creating impact for the good.
Yeah.
And, I think that you can create impact, whether it's in your own home or the town or the community or the state. Like, we've talked about this. I decided I didn't have a dream that was too big. And so what would that look like if I was limitless with my potential for impact? And that's the goal is, do people have the willingness to listen to a 48 with credits included film and be open-minded? And the goal, my husband and I, is not to make all this millions to then live life and be rich and famous traveling all over. It was when we bring the money in, how can we live debt free, but also use this money to help others? What is the philanthropic endeavors to create a more healthy, enriched environment for other people? So we have a very clear plan of what we will do with this impact and how we will give back because of it.
That's wonderful, right? You take care of your house, and there's this really great quote that I learned. I think it was from this book called Infinite Giving by Dr. Ivan Meisner, and he talked about
Yeah, I've heard of it. I haven't read it.
yeah, it's like a super short read, but very powerful. Seven principles in there that you can live a life of abundance through with and accomplish this mission that you're talking about and more. And one of the things that he said is he said, don't fill the cups of others from your cup. Fill it from the saucer. Fill it from your overflow
Um,
of that cup. And I thought that was just so brilliant because I think people like you that want to make a big difference often find themselves sometimes overgiving, giving from the cup when there's
mhm.
not much left. Well, that cup runs dry if you don't
Yeah.
maintain it, allow it to be full. And everything from the saucer, just be generous, go ham. Right? When
Wow.
your home is taken care of, you can do so much more for others. And that's the way I kind of see this conversation is you take care of your health, you take care of your family, you can do so much. Like when you were in all of these situations you were describing at the beginning of this interview, how could you possibly think about the greater good and the community around you when you were riddled with these types of problems. You can't.
But, like, not only was it brutal, I remember vividly being at my cousin's house crying. All the cousins, we did a family get together. We have our dinner, we all, like, say, like, "We're so grateful, and look at us, and we're amazing, we're doing all these things." And then we all get around, and we go around in circles of, like, things that whether they're on our heart or we're just wanting to share. And I wanted help. And I started crying, ugly snot dripping into my mouth, crying, saying, "I don't know what to do. Like, no one has an answer for me." And it was crickets. And they were like, I think that they're just gonna run its course, right? And so not only was it not helpful, but I realized in that very moment I was trying to fit in a circle I didn't belong in. And that also, I think, takes courage to acknowledge it and to realize I need to go find a different circle of people that wanna help me find the answers to the questions that I keep asking.
Ooh, juicy, juicy. So, Jane, where can you find out more about the documentary? Because you can't view it yet.
No, I've learned I mean, again, I'm not a filmmaker. So I applied to all these film festivals, I submitted, and I come to find out they have first right of refusal. So I am in what we call a waiting game that's been actually really beautiful because it's removed me from the outcome. So right now, the website is called drowninginsickness.com. There you can click on a link to be notified of when it will be released, and we'll go from there. And hopefully, more film festivals will continue to say yes so we can spread more awareness, and then I will be able to notify everybody where to go once it is released to the public.
Wonderful. Yeah, change starts with awareness. And so,
Yeah.
by going and viewing this film and going in with an open mind, change is possible. Maybe this isn't the
Mhm.
change that you're seeking, but there is somebody in your network that needs to know about this life-changing information. So I'd encourage you listening right now, go check out drowninginsickness.com. Jane, where can people connect with you? Where are you hanging out if people want to get some more Jane?
I like get some more
Yes.
Jane. I am at so I have no idea who Jane Box 1
Okay.
is, but I'm Jane Box 2 at Instagram, and that's where you can find me the most. I share a lot about health and wellness with, some sprinkling of humor.
Just
I think far too often we're too
just
serious, so
like
we need to have fun.
unlike the last 3 days of stuff that I've seen Jane posting is ridiculous and laugh out loud fun. So,
Good,
I
good.
think that folks listening right now will definitely enjoy what you are sharing and who you're being and showing up in the world. So I appreciate you for
Yeah.
coming out for our interview today
It's an
and sharing
honor.
Drowning in Sickness and your story with the world. You have anything last that you like?
No, no, I think, like you said, change is possible when you're open to it.
Great. Well, with that
Yeah.
said, we appreciate you for listening and watching along today. You can catch us on YouTube, Spotify, all these different places. Please take this information, share it with somebody that you know could really use it, and we'll catch you on the next one. Bye for now.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the Babies in Business podcast. Who do you know that would benefit from hearing this episode? Share it with them and post about it on social media. You can find the show notes for this episode, free downloads, and connect with the rest of the community at babiesandbiz.com. We'll see you next time.